Hello, welcome back to All for United WSC. Well, we wanted updates, and I think we've had, I've lost count how many we've had in the last 24 hours. So as you can see, I've got Kathryn with me to talk through. Kathryn's going to be with us for the first half an hour, then we're going to switch it around, and Barry and Jess will be joining for the second half an hour to react to everything that we've seen today as well. So get your questions in. We'll try and get through as many as we can. I'm not going to ramble on any longer because I've got a few questions myself. I'd like to ask you, Kathryn, from the off. So firstly, how are you doing? Obviously, for those of us in the UK, it's pretty hot today. It's quite, I don't know whether you've got like a fan right next to you or something. I've got two on the go here.
But yeah, I can confirm it's definitely warm here, definitely.
Yeah, I can't stand the heat, mate, but that's a whole other conversation. I want to start then, obviously, before we get into ins and outs of, quite literally ins and outs from United point of view. Obviously, the story that Tom Gowrie released yesterday, which got quite the reaction online. I don't think I've ever seen a story like that, quite certainly in recent months, kind of blow up as much as it did, and rightfully so. If he was on my Twitter, then my thoughts on it as well. Do you have any more kind of, I guess, background to what happened there? For people who obviously didn't see it, obviously the women's facility that obviously was built for the women's side and the youth teams. Going into next season, obviously the men's side getting their new facility are going to be using that obviously when schedules don't overlap. Do you have any more, I guess, information and things like that as to what happened there and the decision making around that?
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, firstly, it's a great story from Tom yesterday, and he covered pretty much everything. Everything that's in that story is pretty much the situation. I know United say they explored other options, potentially moving the team away from Carrington, so that they weren't having to use kind of portable cabins as what they're going to have to use, but they decided that it was more beneficial to stay at Carrington because it could still have the same pitches, the same canteen, and the same medical facilities. It just means so they won't have the same changing rooms, the same communal areas, the same meeting rooms that they had last time. In terms of the men's team will have priority, as you say, when obviously like they don't overlap, when the men aren't there, potentially when the men are on international break, I assume they will be able to have first choice of it. But essentially what is in Tom's story is kind of how the situation will be next season.
I know this is a pretty new story as well. Obviously, as you said, it literally came out yesterday. There was a question on Twitter that was put to us in terms of whether you think or whether we know that this might affect potential incomings and things like that. Obviously, because it's not I think when you're selling a project, I don't think it's necessarily something you'll want to sell as your as a factor that you're not having the facilities maybe that the team had last year and will have, I guess, after the next season. Do you know of any of that going on, that's a potentially off-putting factor?
I think it's one of a number of potentially off-putting factors. Like naturally, I think if you're showing a potential signing around, let's say you've got a player that is considering coming and you're showing them around the facilities, you can go, here's our nice building and facilities that you won't be using for the next season if you join. You can have them afterwards, but you've not got them for a year, or you've not got all of them for a year. So I think it's just part of it. I think it's that decision it plays into that idea that the women's team aren't at this moment in time seen as a priority within the club, and that's the kind of general feeling among those that are already there, and I think probably those from the outside looking in. And from my understanding, I've spoken to a few agents in the game that at this present time say they wouldn't take a player to United the way the situation is. That it doesn't mean that they don't speak for everybody in the women's game, but I do know the overall situation isn't seen as a particularly well-run ship at the minute. But I think that news story is just one part of the problem, essentially.
Yeah, no, I'm glad you said that, actually, because that obviously lines up with a lot of, I guess, other things that you hear and things like that. And I think it's a really difficult one on that one in particular, because I understand a priority maybe on the men's side is where the bulk of the money is, where the bulk of the fans are, but I don't really want to go further into it because I could probably rant about it for ages because I just think it's a ridiculous decision. And as you said, I don't think the optics look good in a time. I think when you've just come off an FA Cup win and all eyes are on United at the moment. I feel like I think I said today that United probably are the biggest talking point right now with everything that's going on. It doesn't seem like a good look. Speaking of optics and how things are looking, obviously I'll start with Mary Earps, because that obviously deal looks like it's going to be the one that gets announced obviously this week as well. Her departure was reported in France first, and obviously a lot of UK journalists picked it up as well. Is there any more you can add on that one in terms of when we might find out when that deal is finalised and things like that? It's looking very likely, obviously, it is going to be PSG. But yeah, any more to add on that particular saga?
I think it's fair to say it's pretty close. It's obviously not. I don't think the I's and the T's are dotted and crossed just yet. I think as ever, these situations, there's a couple of moving parts involved. It's an interesting situation in France that you can have that this is the rules for the season just gone. And I don't think they've released them for 24-25 yet, but assuming they don't change, I think the current rules state that you can have 10 non-EU players in your squad, but you can only have 3 in the matchday squad. And if I'm right, I think PSG had 4 before Mary goes, although there's a couple that I think might be on the way out. So it might be, obviously they can sign her with before they go, but it might just be a case of a couple of things waiting before, that contract can be signed, sealed, delivered. But I think the fact that everybody knows Mary's leaving, you can pretty much assume it's a matter of, when that deal gets announced. I don't think people would know, and her teammates would know that she was leaving the club if it wasn't, set in stone that she's going to be joining another team. And the PSG is obviously the place where she's going.
Yeah, I tend to agree, and I think just judging by United this season, this week, I would imagine we're going to start hearing about that probably this week. It was reported it was going to be late this week in France, so I imagine we're potentially going to hear about that. And to be honest, I'm kind of glad that saga is coming to a bit of an end. It feels like it's been going on for a while, all the way from last summer with the Arsenal reported bid towards the end as well on that one. Moving on, I'm going to apologize to everyone watching. I am reading some of your comments. If they line up with the next question I've got, I will get to them. But I'm going to reel off kind of quite a few players here, because 2 players obviously that were in your article. I think you put out. I think it was yesterday that you put out. Obviously, was Lucia and Nikita Parris. Obviously, Lucia has been announced today officially. Obviously, that she's going. We're all waiting for that to be made official in Mexico as well. But Nikita Parris was the other player that you mentioned in there as well that is likely to leave. Have you got any more information on that one potentially as to why? We know she's out of contract as well. We know she turned down an offer from the NWSL as well to stay with United until the end of the season. Are you expecting her to maybe go back, obviously, with the NWSL offer as well?
Again, it's a difficult one. I've got kind of more coming out on this later in the week in a piece that I've written. But the Nikita Parris situation is interesting because the latest I was told when I put that out yesterday was that she was expected to leave. The club obviously do have the option to extend her contract by an extra year, which they've done in the past with players. They did it with obviously Mary Earps. And I think they've done it with other players as well. I think they did it with Batte. United, I don't really understand why they've not published a retained and release list. I think they're one of the only clubs not to have done that, which kind of insinuates that maybe they're still deciding whether, what to do in that situation. So it could be that they trigger that extension and then she still leaves and they get some sort of fee for her, because we obviously know in April they could have got a reasonably big fee, and Nikita Parris could have got quite a lucrative move to the NWSL, but she turned it down in favour of seeing out the season and obviously playing in the FA Cup final. But yeah, there's just a question. There's a question mark over it, and sometimes things can change quite quickly as well. So. What I'd understood for a while was that she's expected to leave, but it could be that it takes longer, or not out of the question that she could stay as well. It's one of those that's nothing's ever straightforward at United, so we'll have to wait and see on that one, I think.
A transfer saga dragging on at United. Unheard of here. Yeah, no, I agree. And I think if it is America, I don't believe that the NWSL window opens if obviously she is under contract until the 1st of August anyway. Obviously, if she's a free agent, that's slightly different. So yeah, there's obviously difficulties there on that one. And obviously Lucia, we don't need to go into. We know obviously that is officially announced now as well. Another player sat a contract that we've not heard anything officially of, but it has started to be reported today. I think Amanda did a piece and Emma followed it up today as well. Obviously, is Katie Zelem, one that is probably surprising most people, being the captain, played pretty much every minute. Well, she played every minute of the WSL season and pretty much every minute in all competitions as well. What do we expect to happen with that one? Because this one, I think, is the bit. I think with Mary, I think probably most fans expected to go. I think Lucia, from about March time, it was pretty clear, I think, that she was going. But Zelem's the one, I think, the longer it's got to the deadline of obviously a contract expiring, it's a bit like, oh, she might actually be going here.
I saw Amanda's piece yesterday, and again, that kind of correlates to what I'd heard on the Katie Zelem front. I'd kind of heard similar things, that she's probably more likely to leave than stay. And I just think with United's situation behind the scenes, in terms of, obviously Polly Bancroft was there up until May. She's gone to Grimsby now. You've got Matt Johnson acting as interim head of women's football. Obviously awaiting the arrival of Omar Barada, who's going to be the CEO of the men's team, but we know he had a good record of the women's side at Man City. It just kind of feels like, with that situation of Polly Bancroft kind of being there but on her way out, I think that held up a lot of contract negotiations. Obviously, I think when Maya Letizier's new deal was announced, that had kind of been agreed, I think, quite a lot before. It just took a while to actually get finalised because of that background situation. So you can imagine then, with players that are coming out of contracts at the end of the season, trying to negotiate new contracts or having talks, everything's a little bit disorganised, quite a lot like last summer, I think, which we saw with players. And United aren't the only club to have been like this in the last couple of years. We saw City lose quite a few players in the same summer. We saw them lose George Stanway, Caroline Weir at the end of their contracts. And I think that kind of came from club, them being a bit too slow to take up talks of renewing, which I think they corrected by the fact you've seen Lauren Hemp renew that deal quite early and end that speculation on her. And they'd renewed people like Chiara Keating and other players and such. But at United, it still seems to be a little bit chaotic in terms of who's leading things and the organisation. And until things are kind of steadied a little bit, I think that's probably the biggest problem at the minute. I do think Matt Johnson, now that he's actually taken over, I think that was probably the part of the problem, that we were kind of waiting for Polly Bancroft to leave, for then Matt Johnson to take over. He's obviously not had long in this role. And, the direction of the club's obviously up in the air as well. So, to make a long answer, try and make it a bit shorter in terms of Katie Zelem, it doesn't really surprise me that she might leave, because from my understanding, things behind the scenes in terms of negotiations are a bit all over the place.
You mentioned obviously Matt Johnson there, that kind of taking a break from players for a second. Obviously, you've done a few articles about this, about the structure changing above Mark Skinner and things in the background. Obviously, you mentioned Matt Johnson, who's obviously an interim at the moment. Has there been any movement in terms of things behind the scenes? Obviously, we spoke about this at the start, that the women's team doesn't seem to be the main focus and priority at the moment. But is there anything in terms of that? Because I believe it was only a 6 months interim anyway for Matt Johnson. So that's not too long to find a potential replacement to take over from him, but also the wider structure around that.
Yeah, no, it's, again, I think everything's a little bit up in the air. And again, kind of more on this in a piece that's coming out either tomorrow or Friday. I think people are kind of waiting for Omar Barada to come in. I think he starts next month. And we all kind of know he had a good record at City. He's kind of, from what we understand, and a fan of women's football, and has been on the board, the WSL board. So it might be I think this is a problem where you sort of wait. If you're waiting for him to come in to kind of say, what do you think? You lose a month, don't you? And you kind of then waiting. And obviously he's coming in as the CEO of the club in general, and other people might be directing him and say, your main concerns, the men's team, kind of how much of an influence, how much of an impact will he be able to have on the women's team? That might kind of depend on the people above him. So Yeah, I think it's a bit of a waiting game at the minute, and when there's people kind of doing stuff behind the scenes, but it's all a little bit slow, and I think this is where United struggle when they're competing with clubs like Chelsea, who, even though they've lost their manager, you've got people like Paul Green in the background who've been working on transfer targets sort of years on in advance, whereas they're just so much kind of better structured. So that's kind of where United are still playing catch up a little bit. And if they're waiting for somebody to come in to try and, get their opinion, you just end up playing, you've got more catching up to do, if that makes sense.
No, for sure. And I think that's been a theme at United for ages. And it's something I've always said about, obviously, I know there's a lot of opinions around the manager, but I've always said you need to sort the structure above that first, because otherwise you can have a new manager, but the overall processes are still going to be exactly the same until you fix that as well. Which is amazing considering two bits of transfer incomings that we will come back to in just a second as well. Another player I believe is out of contract this summer that weirdly we've not heard anything on is Rachel Williams. Now, have you heard anything on that one? Because I think at the moment everyone's kind of expecting that she's staying, because she's one of those players I would imagine that she is sticking around for next season. But again, no official, I guess, communication really from any of obviously you guys in the press pack, so to speak, but also from United.
No retained or released list. This is kind of what I mean. So whether the club even know yet, again, I don't know. It's just a bit strange, that situation. Again, like you would expect Rachel Williams to stay. She obviously had a big role to play in that FA Cup final. Mark Skinner's comments on her after the FA Cup final were very strong. I think if it was up to him, she would be staying. He's obviously a massive fan of her. And to be fair, as a squad player as well, I mean, I think it would probably make sense to keep her on as an experienced player. A good influence on some of the younger players in the team, and you don't really lose anything by giving her another contract. But again, the fact that there's no word on it and it's all a bit quiet, again, kind of plays into that. Well, who's kind of running things behind the scenes, and how long is it going to take for the club to kind of get things done? So, yeah, I'm the same as you, really. I've not really heard any updates on her situation and whether she's staying or going.
That's certainly a weird one. I always think back. Yeah, no, I've got no idea really what's going to happen there. I would like to think she's there. I think if Terland does arrive, I think someone like Williams would be a good influence on her as well. Not that Terland really needs too much help in the goal scoring front, but having a player like Williams with that experience, I think, would be great on that one. Nick and Troy, you're on my wavelength because I've got a list of players in order here, and you've both asked about Grace Clinton. That was the next player I was going to come to. I think it's been reported. I might be saying something that maybe hasn't here, but that United's stance pretty much is going to be she's staying next season and no offer is going to be accepted. Do you think that could change if Spurs were to come in with I don't know what would class as a massive offer, but a big offer for them, which I would expect them to potentially do? Have you got any potential news on Clinton? Do you expect her to potentially be here next season?
Yeah, I mean, the same as far as I'm concerned. United stance is that she's not for sale. You can obviously never say never, and if Tottenham were to come and blow United out of the water and say here's, again, as you say, what was the world record? Is it just under 500,000? I think, is it over 450? It might have even gone above that now. I think there's been a couple of NWSL signings, hasn't there, that's broken it. So in terms of it being a WSL record, maybe it'd have to be around that sort of thing. And I just don't think Tottenham are going to kind of break the bank for one player as much as they would like to sign her, as much as maybe Grace Clinton would have been, a great signing for them long term. I just can't see United accepting an offer unless it's kind of like Tottenham literally throwing the money at them. But never say never. If it was a huge offer, and potentially a WSL record, then, as I say, you can never say never. But as far as I'm concerned at the minute, United stance is that she's not for sale.
Yeah, no, I tend to agree with that. I mean, a million would be quite something. I don't think I could see that would be a world record, like in any position across the world, if they were to put $1 million down on the table. But I couldn't see it. Not for a player with a year left on a contract. As well, I maybe couldn't see that one. I'm moving across to another midfielder because, again, I think this was reported out of Spain. I think it was about Irene Guerrero, a player that was part of the swap deal with Vilda Arisa last summer. And again, we're kind of looking at a situation where potentially she didn't really play much the season just gone, and potentially it looks like she's on the way out as well. Have you got any information on that one as well? Because it does seem like she's on the exit door as well.
Yeah, again, another one I'd heard is on that kind of expected list at the minute in terms of probably leaving. In terms of the details on it, I've not got a massive amount of information, but she's just one of a number of players in that bracket that has kind of been mentioned as likely to go. A move that's probably not really worked out, although you could say, had she really had enough opportunities to kind of show what she could do? Probably not. I think, was she injured, I think, when she first came to the club, potentially, which kind of held her back a little bit. And we just never really saw much of her. And yeah, it's maybe a move that's probably not worked out for either. But as I say, we've not really had enough of an opportunity to kind of see whether she would have worked or not.
That, to me, I think if she moves, will be one of, I think I tweeted this at the time, one of the weirdest transfer sagas. Like, we swap a player in Vilda because we want a more experienced player for the WSL, and then we don't really play her in the WSL and then move her after a year. That would be such a strange piece of business. But I think it goes back to what you were saying about obviously Polly and then Matt taking over. It's two completely different people with different ideas. I know the manager's still the same, but you're looking at, as far as I'm aware, the Vilda deal was very much obviously Polly's influence in that one. Then you flash forward a year, Polly's not around, and potentially now Guerrero's on the way out as well. So it does seem a bit strange on that one. But if she's not going to play, she's fallen out of the Spanish squad now. She needs game time. She's going to get back in, especially in that Spain midfield that is absolutely stacked as it is in terms of talent. A bit of positivity then. Obviously, Emma Sanders tweeted this morning about Elisabeth Terland. Do you expect that one to get done?
Yeah, I think so. I think that's kind of the moves we can expect United to do this summer. Probably those players that are on free transfers, or kind of, I know I was talking about like a nominal fee. Like, I think that's kind of the route we're going to see the club go down this summer. And to be fair, like you can say, oh, it's a free transfer, but like if you look at Terland's record in the WSL last season, playing in Brighton, who were sort of down the bottom of the table, to score as many goals as she did, that's a pretty good move, I think, and a little bit of positivity in what's been a little bit of a depressing week for the club. I do think that's a good deal, and to be fair to United, to give them credit in that sense, they are good at picking up players on free transfers, or kind of picking up those younger players for not a huge fee. So I think that would be a good move, and I expect that'll probably get done soon. Yeah.
I'm so glad you said that. For Peter, as Becky's comment says, that I've been wanting Turner before she even went to Brighton, so I am so people will not believe I'm going to be unbearable when that gets announced. When I say dream signing, it was very much that at the time, and I couldn't be happier. And as has been mentioned there, Melvine Malard was another one that we've had literally in the last kind of couple of hours. Again, from Emma's been busy today with all kinds of things. But from your point of view, I think you've also done a piece of maybe a while back on Malard as well, in terms of what you expected now. Obviously, it does seem like United are going to trigger the option to buy. Do we have any idea in terms of what kind of fees that would entail, or anything else around that one?
I don't think it's a huge fee. It's an interesting one that they've chosen to do it, to be fair, because I think Mallard's another player we probably didn't see the best of last season. And I remember Mark Skinner was kind of asked, what her positioning was, because she played quite a lot out on the wing, and has probably been more effective in the middle, but prefers playing out on the wing. So I'm not sure we got the best out of her, and I think for them to do that deal, I think they have to have a clear plan of how they're going to use the next season going forward, where her best position is in the team, and how they're going to get the best out of her. Because for me, it was a move that didn't really work last season in terms of the loan move, and again, I just don't think we kind of saw her used to her best qualities. So I think they've got to kind of think carefully about the plan that they're going to have in place for her going forward, and how they're going to kind of build that attacking lineup. Because, as I say, I don't think we saw the best of her last season.
No, absolutely. I'd love to see her off the left with Terland down the middle, but we shall see potentially if those two get fully completed. I wasn't going to ask this, but someone just referenced a name in the chat that I completely forgot that you put an article out about. Ella Toon. Now, I can't remember when you put this out with a link to Barcelona. Has there been any movement on that at all since obviously you did report it as an interest at the time? Has there been any movement on that one, or has it just stayed an interest as far as you're aware?
No, that one's not progressed from where we were last time. I think it was in May. It was initial kind of interest from Barcelona's end. I don't think they'd approached United at the time, and as far as I'm aware, I don't think they have still. So I think it's maybe a situation they're monitoring from a distance and keeping an eye on. But my understanding was that she's one of a number of players in that sort of position that they're interested in. But in terms of making a firm bid for her or a firm movement for her, we're not at that stage yet. So it remains kind of just interest. We'll see if it develops, but at the minute, no movement on that.
That would have been incredible. And I think, as Sander was put there, obviously Barca have got a number of targets I think they're pursuing at the moment as well. So potentially that ship has sailed. There's a lot of people throwing a lot of names in the chat. So I'm going to throw kind of one finally, question at you in terms of any other potential incomings that we might see. We've seen rumours all over the place today. Obviously with Chloe Kelly, I think it's been mentioned. Marla Gross from Bayern Munich's been mentioned, which that blew my mind when I saw that a bit earlier on. Have you got any kind of insight in terms of what United fans can expect in the coming weeks in terms of any other incomings, any positions and things like that potentially United are looking at, and anything on those two players, if you heard anything there?
They want a midfielder, I think, which would make sense because if we're expecting Katie Zelem to leave and potentially Guerrero as well, then they would obviously be a little bit light in that area. So I think that's seen as a priority. To be honest, I think from what I'd understood, they kind of want to play at that sort of spine of the team. So obviously the central forward, which they would get with Terland, a midfielder, and then potentially a centre back as well. That's the kind of the priority of the position. But in terms of names at the minute, I mean, the Chloe Kelly one I've not heard anything on, and I know there's potential frustrations in terms of how she did kind of come back into the City team, to be fair, at the end of the season. She was sort of in and out for a little while. I think they were kind of negotiating it. They're obviously been negotiating a new contract and haven't got one agreed yet with City. But in terms of interest from United, I've not heard anything on that. So I'd be very surprised if anything moved on that front. But yeah, I think midfield at the minute is kind of the priority, which again would make sense with the potential outgoings. But like I say, as far as I'm aware at the minute, unless there's a massive change in strategy, I don't think we're going to see the club spend huge amounts of money. It is kind of probably going to be trying to pick up the best sort of free transfers that they can, or paying sort of smaller fees for maybe some younger players that have kind of got, longer futures in the game.
Literally my very last question, because you were talking about midfield. I think it was you that released this as well about O'Sullivan. Has that progressed any further on that one?
No, they did want her. Was from my understanding, she was a player they wanted, but again, there's nothing kind of progressed on that front. But it doesn't mean they won't, kind of pick that back up again. But yeah, nothing's kind of moved on that situation at the minute.
I probably should have done the good incomings at the end, because it doesn't feel like a lot's moving at the moment with Manchester United, aside from the Terland and Malard deals, obviously, that we've potentially spoken about as well. But yeah, we shall see. And with the Olympics as well, halfway through this summer, I think that definitely shakes. We saw what happened with the World Cup last summer. United did a lot of deals very late in the window, so it might be a case maybe of more of the same. On that one. Kathryn, thank you for coming on. If people want to find your articles and where you post these things, where can people do all that? You mentioned you've got an article coming out soon about Nikita, Parris and potentially a few other things as well. If people want to find all of that, where can people do that?
Yeah, just follow me on Twitter. My handle's just, X as it's called now. My handle's just my name. So yeah, you can find me on there, or just the Mail Online website.
I'll never call it X. It's always going to be Twitter for me. It's never changed on that one. Thank you for coming on. The show doesn't end. I'm going to swap guests as we rotate around. Kathryn, thank you so much for joining us this afternoon.
See ya.
Enjoy the rest of your evening. So we're going to rotate around. I was on my own for a brief second there. As you can see, Baron Jet, because we thought with all of the news that has come out today, trust me when I say I have been... anyone who's following our Twitter account, I've been busy ass today. There's so much news coming out. So we thought we've got to get on and talk about this because there's been official department. As I said at the start of the show, we've been waiting for news. Boy, have we had news in the last 24 hours. So welcome both. It's been a while since I've done a show with you both. I can't remember the last time I was on with you. It must have been a while. I think the last show on here, the last live show, was the three of us, like 3 weeks ago.
It might have been a little while now, you know. Anyway, I'm happy to be back with you both.
There we go.
I was knackered. I was quite happy having a kip. But I've been risen from my coffin to come and have a chat to you lot. So here I am.
So there we go. So we've got plenty to go. I don't know which order I'm going to do this in. Should we start with the official announcement, obviously, with Lucia Garcia departing? Let's start with that one because that is the first. Not that the others I don't think are trustworthy and things like that. They definitely will be becoming official, I'm sure. But Jess, I'll start with you, Sam, because I know how much of a big Lucia fan you were. This is something we've probably known was coming, as I said to Kathryn, probably since about March time. I think we knew that this was coming. Does it make it any easier for you seeing that? Her interview was quite emotional, I can't lie, watching her video that she's done. What's your thoughts around that one? Obviously, I know you're not surprised about it, but what's your thoughts on Lucia's move finally being confirmed today?
Just stress. I've not watched her video. I can't. I've seen some clips, and obviously, Connor, you sent me like a clip of it, but I can't watch it. I can't do it right now. Yes, well, watch this space. I just couldn't bring myself to watch it. I thought it was going to be too sad and depressing for me. I think it's not helped that obviously it's a big outgoing for us. She's played like every single game. I think, and I said this last season or the season before last now, I guess you can call it, when she was sort of coming on off the bench, how much I liked her, how much energy I thought she brought the team. And I think in the games where we've been very negative or, we've not played particularly well, I think she's been like quite a bright spark almost. Her work rate and everything has always given us something positive to at least take from the game. So I think she's going to be a big miss. I saw some comments a little bit earlier up saying that, the players are replaceable. And I do agree with that. I think that she is replaceable, but I think it's not always just about on the pitch performance as well. It's like personality behind the scenes, how they interact, how the players interact with each other. I'm just really sad to see her go, to be honest. I think that she obviously loved the team, she loved the fans, and she really was like a Red through and through. So, I'm just a bit sad, to be honest, Connor.
Yeah, I mean, 12 goal involvements, Barry, in all competitions. That's the fourth best in the team behind Toon, Parris, Williams, and level with Zelem on 12. So a big part of this season, we know obviously she was the FA Cup kind of hero, if you will, in the final, scored 2 goals. She scored in the semi-final, she scored in the early round as well. So what do you make of this one? Again, are you surprised? Or obviously we kind of knew that this was coming, but what's your kind of thoughts on this departure?
I blame the fans. As you well know, we've sat here every day after every game choosing our player of the match. We did it last season. Batte won it. She buggered off. Now here we are again. We voted for Lucia Garcia, and now she's done it. So you need to be thinking about this next season when you're deciding who it is you want to win player of the season. Make sure it's somebody you'd like to leave, because at this point, it's getting a little bit silly. No, look, it's sad. There's no other way for it, and this is what football does. You get these relationships with players, and you just end up adoring the things they do. And I think for Lucia, she's really worked hard. She really has. And if you think of her first season, we spoke about her just being a substitute, actually, and that's what we thought she was better at. But the one thing you always got from her was effort. She would come on, she would run and cover every single blade of grass, and she just worked incredibly hard every single time she played. And that's a big miss. When you start talking about players in a football team, your attitude is more important than your ability to begin with. You know, how you apply yourself to the game is huge. And she applied herself brilliantly every time she played. You know, she didn't always score a goal. She didn't always succeed with the things that she was trying to do, but it was always effort. If she lost the ball, she tried to win it back. She was getting herself in the right places. She was trying to get the passes in. She was trying to get the shots away. For me, of all of the players that could potentially leave, this is the one that is the second most devastating for me as a human being. And to have it officially named, like you say, we were expecting it. It's not a surprise, just like Honor wasn't really a surprise, just like Leslie wasn't really a surprise. It wasn't. But I think the hard part, yes, they're replaceable. I've seen people saying that. I think it was High Lane. He put something up just a little bit earlier. And I think this is true far and wide. Kathryn was talking about it. I was backstage just listening to what you were saying. The bit that annoys me about this, she was talking about putting out a retained or released list. I think what annoys me about this is you look at Chelsea and they have announced who's leaving before they've left. And the fans have their chance to say goodbye. And I think there's a lot of talk about what's going on backstage at Man United at the moment. And the only thing that has really frustrated me about Manchester United, out of everything, is that. It's the fact that we have potentially got 5 or 6 players that are going to leave. And if that's the case, that's football. But we just spoke. I started my little monologue about the relationships you get with players. And we don't get the chance to say our proper goodbyes to them. And for me, that is absolutely criminal. You really want to talk about accepting the fans and loving the fans and how great we are and the noise that's always made and how well we support the team. They never give us that chance. And I think the divide between the club and the fans at the moment is probably as wide as it's ever been because of the fact that they don't properly. You see all this wallpaper, you know, oh, look at this, we've got some people in to go and have a fans press conference and all that sort of rubbish. We don't want that. I'm not really fussed about that. That's just a chance for 20 people to go and sit on the telly. What we really care about is having the ability to say our proper goodbyes to our players. And the fact that she's left brilliantly on a high because of the FA Cup final and then on a terrible low because of the fact that it wasn't the last game of the season, but nobody's had their chance to say their goodbyes. She probably knew, and deep down we probably knew, but what were we supposed to do? We couldn't say goodbye. And that to me is the criminal thing about all of this.
No, for sure. And I'm kind of glad when things start getting announced because I've been allowed to say certain things that I am allowed to say now. And I know for a fact that United knew about this before the last game of the season. So when that's the case, and to be honest, I don't know when that video was filmed, but I think when you look back, I think someone pointed out that had to have been before the last game of the season. I can't remember. Someone pointed out in some video on Twitter about it, but I know that they knew for a while. I think it's been heavily reported. It was reported publicly in March that she was very, very likely to go by reputable journalists that are never going to tweet things if there's not something in it. So that annoys me. And there's going to be one more, I think, that comes that really annoys me as well from a departure point of view. And there are positives, as we'll get to in a second, with potential incomings and things like that are amazing. But that doesn't shy away from issues. And Kathryn highlighted some of them there about, United at the moment. There's this crossover and, things are a bit slow at the moment in getting things done. This is one that really, you can see it in a video. I know Jess has said she hasn't watched it yet, and I think Jess probably will well up a little bit when you watch it later, because the second Lucia, I think the interviewer, as soon as she says, oh, so it's been announced that you're leaving Manchester United, she just starts crying instantly. And you can see how much it meant to her to play for United and for the fans. I think you've both just said, you always got that from Lucia. Like, I'd never watch her and go, she's not trying. Like, 95th, 6th minute in the Arsenal game at the Emirates, she was sprinting down balls that you didn't need to go. We've lost the game, but she's there chasing things down even still. So I think on the pitch, but also off it, it's a big loss. And I know she was very, very well liked amongst the team as well. You only have to look at the players' reactions to it online as well, with her departure as well on that one. As I said, we're going to expect quite a few over the next kind of couple of days. I wouldn't be surprised if we get another one tomorrow and another one Friday, because I think we're going to get quite a few announcements, because that just seems to be fair, I said this during Kathryn's bit there, I'm kind of glad United are doing this. Just get them all done. Get them all done in like a few days, and so then it's not dragged on for weeks. It's been long enough, I think, on that one. Yes, highly agree, because I'm pretty sure the day after the season finished, she went abroad, and then she went straight to Mexico. So, like you said, it had to have been filmed before the end of the season, which means that he knew. So, yeah, it's not a good look, I don't think.
And Chelsea did a good buy. You know, we all had to sit there and watch it on Sky Sports as Emma Hayes comes up and swears all over the national television. We all say goodbye to her. We all say goodbye to Fran Kirby, and we all say goodbye to Maren Mjelde. But what do we get? Absolutely nothing. Just radio silence. You know, it's woken me up for me to get annoyed. This is what it's just ridiculous. I don't understand it. Like, what do you gain? You gain nothing. They're leaving whatever happens. So just tell people. They do more damage to their PR and to their public facing with the way in which they release stuff and the way in which they say things. I just wish they'd realise whoever it is who's doing it needs to get a grip of their life.
No, I agree. And Lucia, if you are watching this, you are going to be heavily missed by the fans. As our player of the season, and that's 2 years in a row now. As Barry said, there was a few people saying, let's just cancel the awards for next year. To be honest, if one of my favourite players is up for the player of the season, I think we will cancel. I'm having another one go, because that is 2 years in the bounce now. But yeah, there's no excuse for me, because as Heinrich just said about Miedemar, that's as high profile as you're going to get, really, in terms of WSL players. Arsenal announced it before the last game, so they could give her a send-off.
They're clubs that understand the relationship. Like, this is it. You build your relationship. You sing songs. Well, what is it? Fallon, you just did the interview with Fallon. We love how you do that. We hear that. We can hear everything you're saying. It's mad how you lot remember every single word and you sing them at the time that you sing them. So the fans and the players know the relationship. It's just the absolute muppets in suits that just sit there and try and poke all the fun out of it. Honestly, it's like going into a room full of balloons and thinking you have the time of your life, and somebody comes in with an AK-47 and just shoots them all down. And you sit there and go, oh, that was a shame, wasn't it? Honestly, I am just so effing tired of the way in which we get treated as fans.
No, exactly. And as Yvonne said, yeah, that's what I mean. If you go back and watch shows that I did on this channel like ages ago, you'll hear me talk about players leaving things, and that's about the time when I found out that the squad knew that she was going. So, if I know, I definitely knew. Jets, I want to throw a name just very quickly on this one, because again, this is a loose report. Well, no, it's not a loose report, because it's come from Sky Sports in Germany, and they are very reputable, particularly when it comes to things Bayern Munich. This was a weird one, and I just want your opinions on it, really, in terms of. I'll read the exact quote they put out. Marla Gross, obviously, is the Bayern Munich #1 keeper, is a candidate for Manchester United to replace Mary Earps. They're reporting Gross is ready to leave Bayern Munich to pursue her personal goal of playing for a top club in the WSL. Now, top club in the WSL, I don't know whether that's us at the moment. We were currently 5th in the league. But are you surprised by this, or do you think this is a bit of, I guess, talk amongst it, the fact that we're going to lose Mary Earps and that we're being linked to a keeper? Because to me, we do not need a keeper. That's the least of our worries, in my opinion.
Yeah, I would like to hope that it's just the case that a keeper wants to leave a club, or a keeper's rumoured to leave a club, and we are getting rid of a top keeper. Why she would want to come to United right now from Bayern, I don't know, to be honest with you. And I say that as a die-hard United fan. I couldn't think of anything worse. And if this is serious and we are genuinely interested, you have to question more what we are doing as a club. We bought in Fallon, obviously, didn't really utilise it at all this season. I don't know if people were more convinced maybe that Mary was going to stay, but let's face it, from last summer, we knew that she was most likely going to be on her way out. So why we would then get another replacement? Because what's Fallon going to do? Just sit on the bench for another season? Like, no, we should have been playing her this season for cup games. Like, I'm sorry, but we should have done. And that's a whole different conversation that we've had numerous times. But yeah, I am assuming it's just a case of like an article basically like clickbait. You throw in Man United, you're going to get clicks, big fan base. You can also throw in like Mary Earps' name, and suddenly you're going to get a lot of clicks. So unless she's coming in as a second keeper, which why would she do that? I would question her sanity and mental cognitive abilities. Yeah, no. So, girl, if you're watching, stay at Bayern or just go somewhere else.
Yeah, I can't see, and especially because we paid a world record fee for a goalkeeper for Fallon, we would have to pay another world record fee for a goalkeeper to get her. Like, don't get me wrong, for me, she's one of the best keepers in Europe. There is no I'm sorry to anyone who wants it. There is no way this is happening. Like, there's just not. She's not leaving. And especially at her age. Like, to me, I think it would cost upwards 300,000-400,000 just to get her to even Bayern to consider it. And they're not, for me, from what I hear today, Bayern are not even considering any offer for her. So, yeah, I don't think that there's too much in it. I had to ask because I just want your thoughts on this one. As soon as we mentioned goalkeepers, Rosa answers the chat. Sorry, Rosa. Talking goalkeepers.
Or something, just sort of like summoned.
Appears. As soon as Earps' name is mentioned, she's in. But yeah, no. And to be, I'm going to be so, for people who know, I'm going to be so biased towards Fallon as well in the upcoming season, because having spoken to her and obviously everything out, and those of you who haven't watched the interview, go and give it a watch. If it was very good, if I do say so on that one.
So easily bought, aren't you?
Oh yeah. Yeah, she's just an amazing. But I want to see more of her next season anyway. I said that before we even knew Mary was going. To be fair, but
can I just say we had a lot of you both just sat there. I've heard you both talking about this Bayern keeper, and literally both of you are everybody sits here and goes, "Oh, we need to get good quality players in at Manchester United," and then literally the minute a good quality player turns around and goes, "Want to come to Man United?" Why the hell would they want to come here? We're not a top WSL club. Like, just absolutely poo-pooing everything. Let's be clear. The reason you don't necessarily need her is because I don't understand why they do this with goalkeepers. We end up with 3 people in the fighting for the number 1 spot. And all that's ever going to happen there is if you have a league goalkeeper and a cup goalkeeper, which generally you would like to have, the third goalkeeper just stagnates. They're training, but they're not getting any actual playing time, which is just stupid for me. Like you said, we paid a world record for Fallon. She's turned up. And if all she manages to do is become a Conti Cup goalkeeper, that's criminal. That's criminal. It really is. So, yeah, it'd be brilliant. It's nice that we're getting linked with these names, but let's be honest. We need the goalkeeper that knows how to eat her burgers correctly to be our number 1 next season.
For anyone who hasn't seen, Fallon's actually replied to my tweet today with a burger and knife and fork emoji. I cannot believe that question is stuck in her mind. We were in 2 minds whether I was going to ask that. I was kind of semi-joking when I said to Barry about it, shall I ask this or not?
Honestly, I love it. What an absolute queen. And I just enjoy the fact that now, like, actual footballers from United are beefing you for it, essentially.
I love the idea.
She's just a lovely person because she completely annihilated him with the burger question, but she deliberately went out of her way to find one of the 3 films that Connor's ever seen so that he didn't feel completely bad. Like, that's what a lovely person.
I was going to say, I love the idea of that question of Fallon going to the WhatsApp group at United, just going, "Did you know I got asked this today?" and that going around. But yes, I'm 100% glad we did, and yeah, one of the best shows we've ever done on this channel for me. So yeah, Fallon, if you're watching, thank you very much again for coming on, because it was definitely worth that one. Right, something else that's going to make me smile a lot, because today obviously has been reported that Elisabeth Terland is very likely on her way to Manchester United. Look at their faces light up. I love it. It's not for the reasons you think either. It looks like
my face is lit up for the reason you think my face is lit up, but there we go.
I am just want to say that I'm so excited for my girl Big Lizzie T to come in. So every week I can refer to her as Big Lizzie T. And if she ever watches this, she's going to be like, "Oh, what's going on?" But I'm just so excited.
So to everyone who's watching, it's been great having you in for Jess's very last appearance on All For United FC.
That's just rude. That is so rude.
But on a serious note, I think for me, this has been, as I said to Kathryn before, I wanted her before she went to Brighton. It's a player that I've been so excited about and raved about all season to anyone who will listen on this one. Barry, I'll start with you on this one because obviously, again, she was part of our team of the season. She did actually make our team of the season when we did our WSL one on the Women's Football Channel. It does look like has been funny you say that was reported by us. So Emma Sanders did report the interest in the move was close, and then I added a bit more to the info that I had found out a few days prior to that her medical has been done this week as far as I'm aware. But Barry, is this the kind of player, it's a free transfer, which obviously is always good, get her on a free. As far as I'm aware, there was a lot of interest in her from all over Europe, from Champions League sides and elsewhere. She was definitely a sought after player. 22, just coming up to 23, third top scorer in the league last season. This is a good signing, right? And a player that we need.
I think, listen, I cried genuine, proper, shoulders going tears when Queen Elizabeth II died, but all rise for Queen Elizabeth III, because I genuinely, when you're sitting there looking at all this murky, absolute rubbish going on, it's like they've just come in with, oh, hello, by the way, is the third top goal scorer in the WSL last season. And it's absolutely unreal. And this is why, sometimes I think we are quick to just sort of jump on the people who are above because, and rightly, because they do stupid things. And we've had that. But people saying there's not a plan, there has to be a plan. And this obviously must have been part of it. I heard you talking about whether or not Keats is going to stay. And I think the big thing for me there is you can imagine Keats out there on the right, Malard out there on the left, and Terland up front. I'm finding that to be quite a good and quite a potent front three. So I think we've got a lot of work there that has been done. And we should be proud of the fact that we've managed to get some really, really, really good people insofar as Elisabeth Terland. So for me personally, absolutely delighted. Of your two favourite players, if I had to go and choose between Elisabeth Terland or Maz Pacheco, this is the one I would have chosen. So for me, from a personal point of view, it's definitely the right one. And I just think that what we need to do now as a fan base is all we can do is get behind the ones that are there, because our issues are never with the girls. We see how they perform. So from my point of view, brilliant signing. It shows the ambition that we need it to show. It shows that we are trying to get ourselves up there and try and get the goals, which we weren't getting quite as many of last season as we did before. So yeah, I can't wait for her to have her coronation and for us to be able to properly crown her as not just Queen Elizabeth III, but also as our top goal scorer for 24-25. All hail Queen Elizabeth III.
Just before I bring in Jess on this one, obviously keep your eyes peeled when this is officially announced. There will be a player profile show with two people making an appearance on this one, myself and two others. So three, if you include me on that one. Talking all things about her and things away from the pitch and on the pitch as well and what to expect. So there is a video coming on that one as well. Jess, for you, obviously this is a position that you feel like we need, because as I said, we're potentially losing, obviously we've already lost Garcia, potentially losing Keats, potentially losing Williams. That's a lot of goals that we're potentially losing. So to get the third top scorer in the league, this probably isn't a bad way of making up for some of those.
No, absolutely. I think it does show that the club somewhere are kind of looking in the right direction. It's been from the end of last season, it was kind of like posted quite heavily that all the players that were sort of like out of contract that we were potentially losing, like starting keeper, like players that have played every single minute, like most creative players, top goal scorer, all these other things. So I think bringing in someone like of her caliber is just fantastic. And I'm just really laughing at all the comments coming in now, referring to her as Big Lizzie, Big Lizzie T. I would like to apologise directly to Big Lizzie. And if she wants me to stop calling her that, my Twitter's down here. Just drop me a little DM And I'll stop. I also just want to say that I have these really like funny kind of visions in my head of her medical being done on like a really old turbo trainer in like a little cabin in the woods somewhere. Because where are the women's facilities right now? Have they been kicked out already? Do you know what I mean?
Woods.
Well, just like a cabin somewhere.
It's not a horror film, Jess. It's a medical. Coming at her with a scalpel.
Just like it's like where I take my dog for a walk. There's randomly with like containers, and I think I've got that engraved in my brain as well. We actually looked in one of the containers today, and there was nothing in there, just some. Anyway, that's a whole other topic, but yeah, it makes me wonder, like, when we bring these people in, what are they seeing? Like, is it just a mishmash of like gym equipment? It could be like my garage. Maybe actually I'll speak United Women and say that if they want to come and give anyone medicals, they can use my garage. I've got a toilet they can use. It's not like back when Casey was in charge and they've got to walk 10 minutes or whatever it was to get a toilet. That's my only concern. But no, I'm very excited about Elisabeth Terland. I think she will be a fantastic asset. And these are all killing me now. And I've absolutely lost my head. I think my problem is I had 2 allergy tablets today. My head is gone, absolutely gone. All these possible outgoings and incomings are just purely sending me somewhere bad. So sorry, Connor, I don't know if I answered any of your questions, but that was just a little spiel.
Yeah, absolutely. And do you know what I love doing these shows? We've not done as many lives on YouTube in the last kind of couple of weeks, purely because there's not been any info to go live with. But I love it, the fact that there's probably, I would say probably about 30-40% of you are probably new to the channel right now watching us. I just love the idea that you're getting a very good insight into what we are like as a channel just by the comments. I'm literally just sat here just admiring you all, just covered up with your own references and comments back and forth to each other. It's absolutely brilliant. Another incoming, because another bit of positive news that came out today. Again, as I said, Emma Sanders has been very busy from a United point of view today. Is the possibility, I say possibility, I do believe that this is going to happen. Sorry if you can hear the dogs in the background, by the way. I'm an absolute, don't know what's going on over there. But it does look like Manchester United are going to trigger the buy option in Melvine Malard's loan agreement, and that Manchester United will, the exact line, I believe, was Manchester United will make her a permanent player this summer. So this does look like this is going to get done as well. Now, for me, I've said to everyone that I speak to kind of off camera and everything else, my 2 dream signings this summer was Malard and Terland. The fact that these might be our 2 first signings to the window, I don't care if we don't get any others. To be honest, these are my 2 that I wanted. No, I'm joking. We do need a midfielder and definitely some fullbacks. Just throwing that out there, United, if you watch it. But Barry, this is a player we all said throughout the season, don't fall in love with loan players. We all fell in love with in terms of her ability when she did play. We've seen her as a striker and off the left, but as a player, in terms of what her passion on the pitch that we've seen, kind of being that cheerleader role, if you will, at times, with the fans, she clearly embraced United right from the off. So yeah, I'm assuming this will make you pretty happy if this one's going to get officially announced as well.
Well, again, we spoke a lot about attitude in one of my previous answers. And I think when you look at Melvine, it's just the right attitude. She's there. If she's not playing, she's got a good attitude around the rest of the players. She's positive. She's encouraging. And, you could see that in the FA Cup win as well. She hadn't had as much of a say in the final as perhaps some other players had. But she was incredibly supportive of the team around her. And I think that just shows how well she settled in to the group. And I think that's vital. The settling in is one part. We've seen her quality. We can remember her nearly scoring from almost the halfway line, which was just an unbelievable effort. So, she's clearly a very, very talented person. And the good news is she's got to be at least 30 games into her 50-game training package. So she should be really ready to go as we get to the final third of the season. So I feel like it's just, again, it's a really good sign. And when you think about the attacking options we've always had good attacking options, but we've never had, in my opinion, like top quality. They've never been ones that are fighting for the Golden Boot, for example, at the end of the season. Keats gave it a good go this season, but her goals were drying up towards the end. So I feel like with Terland and Melvine there as well, potentially Parris, if we can somehow extend that contract by the 1 year that Kathryn was talking about. It starts to give us Rachel Williams, of course, as well. If she stays, you start getting that quality in depth. I'd argue we probably still need another one, but that's two really good high-level names that will really help us. Jay's, of course, we've not even mentioned her. You know, she's amazing down the wings as well if she works hard. So I think we've just got an incredible lineup up front. And I think for us now, the big thing is just watching and seeing who else goes and who else comes in. But for me, love it. Brilliant. Excellent. This is what I mean. You see, the incomings are all going to sit there and go, wow, they're really great incomes. And look at the first two that we've been announced with. You know, the last time it was Gemma Evans just before the season ended, and we're all sitting there thinking, what's happening here? This time, it's two big names, and I think that's brilliant.
It's certainly, if you think about that, because I do think Williams will stay for next season. I think Keats will probably move on. You think, you know, Jace off the right-hand side plus one more, and then you've got Galton and Melvin potentially occupying the left, and Terland and Williams as your two strikers. You know, in the midfield, I know what Kathryn was saying about midfield as a priority. I definitely think defensive midfield is going to be a priority. Attacking midfield, I don't think it's going to be an issue when you've got Watson, Miyazawa can play their tunes there, Clinton coming back in as well. I don't think that's good. I think we're going to be pretty fine there. That you then start to build a very strong attacking line. Like, not that we didn't have that last season, but goals were very short last season in terms of what we were seeing. I think the output was a lot lower, Parris aside. I think Parris and Toon's goal involvements were higher than the previous season, but everyone else had dropped from where they were the season prior. So I definitely think, I agree. And I think if Jace ups her end product and adds goals and assists into her game, because the ability's there, we've all seen it. She can beat a player like as easy as anything. We need to see that next level from her now, that composure in front of goal on that one. Jess, again, I know you're a massive Melvine fan as well, so I'm sure you're pretty happy with the news that, because we were all starting to worry, I think, the closer it got to the deadline, because her loan agreement ends on Sunday as well as the other players' contracts. So we were all getting a bit like, oh, hang on, it's getting close to the 30th here. They're going to announce that she's not coming back. So I'm assuming you're pretty happy with the news that it seems like United are going to extend her and make her a permanent deal.
Oh, 100%. I think, and I've said this before, I say this all the time, I tend to be very pessimistic, especially when it comes to United, and quite honestly for good reason. So I was not convinced that we would get her to sign that thing. But we have, by some miracle, again. So I am thrilled, because I think we have seen kind of flashes of her link up with Jace especially. And I think if those two can kind of sort out their end product almost, then they're going to be a force to reckon with this season, alongside, of course, Big Lizzie T. Sorry, I'll stop, I promise. Yes, that is a scary sort of front three. I think, like you say, Keats is probably going to be gone. But having her on a permanent, again, like Garcia, her kind of attitude towards the fans, she is a Red, despite the fact that she is a lone player and maybe didn't play as much as we would have liked. She is a Red, the way she interacts with the fans, just everything about her. She gives her all for the team when she's on the pitch. So I do think that will be a fantastic signing for us, keeping her on a permanent. And I think also signing players like that does kind of help our star appeal almost, in kind of getting other players in when there might be more negative articles coming out about the club. If we're kind of retaining a player like that who's been at the club for a year but had the option to not stay, it shows that something must be going right somewhere, basically.
I think that's a good point you make, and especially when you talk about, she's a 4 times Champions League winner, and will have seen the story. Well, I say seen the story. She will have known, obviously, the issues with.
She's in the port cabin right now. She's in the woods. She is choosing to be in the woods, so the woods can't be that bad.
Overstaying at a club like Lyon, who got to the Champions League, obviously final, and are very established and will win trophies in France. They pretty much dominate that league season after season. So to get a player like that, don't get me wrong, Lyon I'm sure will be fine, and they sounds like they're going to replace with Chewinga anyway, who's just it's just ridiculous. Another forward that they just don't need over at Lyon. What? Look who you started, Jess, with this. Oh, God.
I've just derailed everything. Now I just keep thinking of horror films and the fact that, I literally watched Cabin in the Woods like 2 weeks ago.
I've seen that film as well, so I get what you're about.
I think that might be why it's on my mind, because I literally watched it less than 2 weeks ago.
As long as we're not having Nightmare on LSB Street, I'm not bothered about anything else.
Imagine maybe it's like Sir Jim haunting your dreams. Don't fall asleep or he'll be there, taking more facilities from you, telling you you're not important.
Yeah. If we keep defending after one goal, it's probably going to be another episode of Psycho.
Oh.
Yeah, I was going to say that one. Yeah. You can always rely on Barry for a good pun. Although I had a good one in the Fallon interview by complete accident. See,
I was just going to say, yeah, you did. And I went, well done, Connor. You went, no, that's a complete accident. I'm like,
It was a
And then when
mistake.
you did do one on purpose, you immediately went, oh, I'm so sorry, Fallon. That was a terrible pun. I'm like, shut up, Connor. Own it, mate. Own it.
Own it. You make a pun, you own it.
Yeah, it's... I can't believe it. It's not even happening. Maybe we'll do that when we get to November. Well, we're looking at October, November time. Maybe we'll come up with some...
You don't want to do Halloween in November, mate. You missed it at that point.
October, that's what I said that. And I realized, no, actually, no, it's October, November. You know what I mean?
That's a good job, isn't it, really?
Yes, exactly. There's still over 100 of you watching this as well, which is absolutely mental. Fair play to you all. On that one, it's just dropped below that now. I've said that, typical. I just want to... Oh, God. Oh, God. What have I said?
I'm going to ask you the question later. Don't worry.
Oh, God. Anyway, what I was going to ask you, obviously, 'cause I'm assuming you were both listening along to everything Kathryn was referring to. I reeled off a lot of players. We were talking about all things ins and outs and various things. Is there anything on there that Kathryn mentioned earlier that potentially excites you or worries you a little bit as we get into the transfer window? We're only 3 days in, believe it or not, officially into the transfer window. But Jess, I'll start with yourself. Was there anything on there that any of the players, I'll let you pick one, that makes you a bit of excited, makes you a bit nervous? What's your kind of thoughts on everything there?
To be honest, I'm a pessimist, I'll admit it. And I just feel a bit stressed at the minute. You have cheered me up a little bit when I do think about the incomings like Melvine, Terland, assuming that actually does all happen, that is exciting. I think the big one is keeping hold of Grace Clinton. I think that will be a good indication of where the club sees itself. Like, obviously, Spurs really they're going to want her, obviously. I think the biggest thing is can we retain her and can we make the most of her, basically? What I don't want to see is basically retaining her and not letting her kind of thrive, because she has the potential to be a megastar. Like, her ceiling is so high. She can be a phenomenal player. I think in terms of, I'm just a bit stressed about the others, to be honest. Again, just briefly dipping back to, I don't like how we don't do kind of have a chance to say goodbye. Like, all of a sudden it's going to just be rumoured that someone's leaving. Then the next day it's going to be like, oh, goodbye. Like today, obviously, Zell's been linked with a move away, like not re-signing. And tomorrow it'll just be like, oh yeah, thanks for the good time, see you later. And I don't like that. It feels like there's leaks or whatever to journos, and then United go, oh man, damn, we should probably tell them that she's leaving. Otherwise, the next season's going to start and she's just not going to be there. And I just feel like it does the players a bit of a sort of disservice. So that's my beef with that. But yeah, in terms of things to look forward to, there are things, Melvine, we've already covered, is huge and very exciting, and Lizzie T and Grace Clinton. I'm very excited to see her back in a United shirt.
It's also worth noting as well, obviously, when we talk about new signings, I think the likes of Watson, and Gabby George are going to feel like new signings because players that we didn't see. Obviously, Gabby started the season, but obviously missed the whole thing. And after that, and Emma didn't even start the season with us because she got injured in pre-season. So I think they're going to feel like new signings as well as Grace if we keep hold of her, because again, we've not seen her for a full season at United either. So that's 3 players you could argue will feel a little bit like new signings on that one.
Yeah, I probably agree with that, especially Gabby George. She was huge for us in those early games, so I think it'd be great getting her back.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, TJ's asking how Gabby's rehab goes. It's going as well as obviously you could expect. I don't think she's going to start the season. Hers will be a bit later. I think Emma will be the one at the start of the season. I think Emma will probably be about there with the likes of Jess Simpson potentially as well, obviously, because if she stays and doesn't go on loan, there's a question for a later date in terms of loans, because we've got quite a few youngsters I think that potentially could do with a loan as well on that one. Barry, same kind of question to yourself on that one in terms of anything that maybe concerns you or excites you from what you heard a bit earlier on in terms of where we're at the moment, because as I've said quite a few times during this, we wanted updates. We seem to be getting them now, and as I said, from what I understand, I imagine we're going to get a few more by the end of the week. This is not going to be the last time we go live by the end of this week. Trust me, there'll be a few more. It might even be tomorrow with how many more I think we're going to get, certainly departures. Is there anything there that you wanted to, I guess, elaborate on from your side?
I mean, we've spoken about a few. My main drama with it, as I've said, is the fact that the fans feel like an afterthought. It's been put in the chat, and I couldn't agree more. It really does feel like we, as the people that have supported and encouraged and done everything that we can do, we just get nothing. Like, there is nothing forthcoming from this football club whatsoever. And it's tricky because there's a lot of news coming up. We've said from start to finish, actually, that this club is a mess. And I don't mean, the women's team necessarily. I'm talking about Manchester United. We knew it was a mess. From the Glazers holding on to get as much money as they possibly could, it was a mess. And we've said it's going to take ages to sort. This isn't something that's going to be fixed immediately. Now, a lot of people are having a go because, I've heard you all joking tonight about the fact we're in the porta cabins, and it's going to be shared. It's one of those where the facilities aren't good. Everybody goes back to the Ronaldo interview, and he said that the facilities are exactly the same as they were when he left. So they haven't put any money into it. So it should be good news that the club's decided to put 50 million into Carrington so that the facilities are perfect. But you end up in a situation where you've got the men's team and the women's team, and they both need to use the facilities. And I'm not sure if there was a better solution than what's come up with it. Is it ideal? No, it's probably not. But if you think about if you were to, sort of refurbish Old Trafford, for example, they would have to close a certain section of the stadium, which is going to inconvenience some people. So it's a year at the end of the day that's going to inconvenience. It's not brilliant. It's not perfect. And it probably could have been worded better with the way it was said. But I think people just feel like the women's team are an afterthought. And from the people high up, I can see why people think that. But equally, it's just common sense that where the most money comes into the club as a business is where it's going to be directed to and sorted out first, because the men's team is in, I would say, a much bigger hole than the women's team is at the moment. The women are successful in spite of the ownership and the backroom structure, whereas the men's team are not. They're just dreadful in general at the moment and require a lot more. So I think that's my first thing that I would say, is that we just need to, I think, give a little bit more slack to the people above with regards to settling in and getting the people in. We're supposed to get 3 signings in. We mentioned Omar Barada coming in, but he's not here yet. Dan Ashworth coming in, he's not here yet. So the people that we want in these positions haven't arrived yet. So how are they supposed to start their work legally and properly if they're not here? So we've got to give them this grace period. And so it's not ideal. And people, again, Michael mentioned about Sir Jim's comments there. I don't know what else to say. I think some people are a little bit too over emotional about how that was said, because the facts of the matter come in. Let me put it to you another way. If the women's team won the WSL next year, but the men's team finished 10th, that is not great optics for the club and for the investment and for the money and for everything that we would normally have. So they're going to focus on the men's team and the absolute shower of, you know what, insert your own word there, that we currently have. So that is always going to be the first thing, because that is the yardstick by which Manchester United have traditionally been measured. And also the girls are doing brilliantly. It's just a case of what I've always said, just give them £5 million and leave them to sort it out. £5 million and someone who knows what they're doing. And at that point, they'll be sorted. So I know there's going to be a lot about it. We'll have this conversation at another time, because other people are going to want to go to sleep, or go and watch the football, or even have dinner. I don't know. So I'm sure we'll return to that another time. My issue is less about these big decisions that people are making there. It's about these little ones. Just treat your fans better. Like, the world and their mate knows how much I rate Katie Zelem as a player, and it absolutely breaks my heart that she could have been a player that has started from the very beginning in 2018 and pulled herself as captain all the way through, has led us to our first major trophy, and the best that she's going to get is a couple of messages on Twitter saying thanks for your efforts and goodbye. It's just not acceptable. If that is what happens and she doesn't re-sign, that's just atrocious. And for me, almost unforgivable, because that's not how you create a decent relationship between a club and its fans. And so it's poor. When you start looking at comparing the men's and the women's, this is where it's a drama. We knew that Anthony Martial was leaving. We knew that Rafael Varane was leaving. And all of them get applauded down the tunnel, even though they've been absolutely cack for the last few years. And these lot, who've been absolutely brilliant, get nothing. They're not getting cheered off. They're not getting thanks for that. People don't get the chance to get their last photos or whatever it is they wanted to try and do. None of that. And for me, that is absolutely ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. There's one or two people in the chat that I think need to lay off the wacky backy, because they're coming up with some really interesting things there. Anyone who thinks Ella Toon is leaving has lost the plot entirely. But anyway, doesn't matter, because we've got Queen Elizabeth III to look forward to. So let's just keep our hands on the happy time, shall we?
Yeah, Ella Toon's not going anywhere. And I know, RC, you've just mentioned about Chloe Kelly. That is not happening. There is nothing in that at all. I can assure you of that. I'm not entirely sure where that's come from. Oh, well, I've seen it today. I know where it's come from, but I mean in terms of where that originated from. My understanding of it is United haven't contacted City, her agent, her. Like, I don't know where that's potentially come from, to be honest. So I really don't think there's anything in that in the slightest. You mentioned Jace, RC. I never really said that. I said it was unlikely. And the difference is United were actually in contact with Barca and Jace's team. They're not with Kelly at the moment. So, yeah. I would highly doubt it. To me, this just seems like Kelly trying to put pressure on City to get a better deal. Because people forget she's also out of contract. Not this summer, next summer as well. So they need to get her tied down. No, it wasn't trolling. There was... Kathryn answered this a bit earlier on. There was genuine interest from Barcelona, but there was a show I did on All for Women's Football with Emily talking about this. Interest quite literally can mean you're on a list of players that club might want, and it might just stay as that. It might be a passing comment by someone on the board going, "Oh, I quite like that player." That's deemed as an interest. So I think that's probably where Barca are at with that one. And yeah, to be honest, I wouldn't want Chloe anyway. With how much she's been badge tapping and shushing the fans and all that kind of stuff, I don't want her in United. She can stay at City on that one. So no, great player. She can stay at City. We'll go for somebody else. So you've got it in for me tonight. What's going on here? Bringing F1 into it. I can't believe this. Oh God. That's comment of the night. That is. Can we take away games with it. It might help the queue in for female toilets though, because every time you walk past them, the queue is, I'm sure Jeff can attest to this, at women's games are ridiculously long. So it might help shorten the queue a little bit for you guys there. Agree. Yeah, no, that's fair enough. I think it's very much will be linked to more wingers, I'm sure. I don't think Malard and Terland are going to be the only forwards we sign this window. Publicly, no, we're not going to link to anyone else, but we'll see. As Kathryn said a bit earlier on, United are a bit slow to act at the moment with everything else that's going on around the club, and the Olympics coming up is not going to help because a lot of players don't really want to be doing contract stuff when they're coming up to the Olympics and things like that. So, to be honest, we might get these two, maybe one more, and then that'll be it then, I think, until after the Olympics, potentially. As far as I'm aware, yeah, I don't think she's going anywhere, so I think we're pretty good there. TJ, don't even make that weird. Come on. Oh, dear. And yes, it does look like
it's because TJ, occasionally when Connor is at a football match, he gets wet hair. You know, if people have been cheering, and he's got to go and dry his hands and his hair, and the hair dryers are better in the ladies. I think it's not bad. Like, I've never been in there, so I wouldn't know. But I think,
as a lady who uses the ladies' toilets, I can confirm I've seen Connor in there drying his hair. You've heard it here first.
So that's why I have to have a look. Like, can I get in and just give the quiff a dry? Make
He's
sure
like,
it's where it
yes,
should be.
and I go in, and I'm like, yes, I will escort you. I will be your chaperone. I feel like I'm starting a dangerous rumour here.
I was going to say, people are going to believe this.
No, he doesn't. That's a lie. I just have to wee a lot because I drink a lot of black coffee when I go to the games just to try and de-stress and get through them, basically. But yes, porta cabin as a little portable toilet. United exclusive. There we go.
Exactly. Lucia's asking, is Zelem linked to any other clubs? Not individual clubs. She is, as far as I know, speaking, I guess, with other clubs. Has been. I think Emma reported this earlier as well, that there are other clubs looking at it. Who those are, I've got no idea. But yeah, she does have interest from all over Europe. So yeah, I think one just to keep an eye on. I said I wouldn't be surprised if we get a Zelem update in the next kind of couple of days. We'll definitely, I think, get a Mary one in the next kind of couple of days as well. So we're not going to cover those two too much more now because we will save those for a separate show because, yeah, we'll wait until those are official. I
can confirm, Marion, he does. Yeah. So where we are in the UK, you can get a hand dryer. So you dry your hands underneath and you can turn it so that it goes up. And so what he does is he just gives it a little turn like that and he says, whee, with the head. I do it sometimes if my head's a little bit wet, just it flies straight off. It's beautiful. For him, it takes a bit longer. So when we speak about Wembley, he wasn't really having a drink. It was just, it took him 20 minutes to get his hair dried. Outrageous.
I can confirm me and Neil were waiting for him for ages.
Nearly missed the second goal, and that was from Garcia. Imagine this, unreal. Like the things he could miss.
We all really missed that goal because someone was taking so long.
Oh, I knew that was coming.
Use how'd you get the volume?
Oh, Jesus, I can't believe it. I swear Charlie asked me this on a show once. It has to be kind of like, I do have to blow dry it up, obviously, to keep it, otherwise it will just go flat. I can't believe I'm doing this on camera, but it does have to blow dry it up, obviously, to stay up. I don't do anything else. There's nothing special on this one. Should we round it up there? We'll likely be live, as I said, potentially tomorrow or Thursday. Tomorrow or Friday, depending on when the next announcement is. As I said, we're basically waiting on United now to confirm a couple of outgoings. We'll have individual shows for Zelem and for Mary if and when those get confirmed. If not, we'll be back some point next week. As I said, we do have a Terland show coming. Do you have a Terland show coming soon as well? If that gets obviously officially confirmed by United as well. That's a brilliant comment. Maybe we should get a sponsor. There we go. If there's anyone watching this that wants to sponsor the channel, see if we can get something going there. I reckon that'll catch on.
We should just make up a new sponsor every week, like something silly. And yes, I like that this week has been sponsored by a cabin in the woods.
Cabin fever, surely. That was a horror film.
Honestly, Simon, that's going to seem so out of context. You've just joined. Oh dear. Anyway, honestly, TJ, that's mental. By the way, that's one of the maddest signings I think going. She's gone from like PSG, City, Madrid, London City line. It's such a weird move. I think that one. But anyway, thanks to all of you watching. There's still 110 of you watching. It's absolutely amazing. The community is growing tenfold over the last kind of few weeks or so. So you've been amazing to have in once again. So if you haven't already, go and watch the Fan Tours Joyce interview. It's not on the live tab. Obviously, it's on the YouTube, on the videos tab to go and find that one. We'll be live, like I said, in the next kind of couple of days when we get some more news from United, whether that's a departure or a potential incoming. So lots to look forward to. Follow the Instagram, the TikTok, and the Twitter at All for United WFC. Lots to keep an eye on there. Appreciate that. There's been so many of you, by the way, that have subscribed in the last couple of weeks. We appreciate every single one of you. Welcome to the All for United WFC community. It's great to have you on board. We're aiming for 3K by the end of the year. So if you haven't already subscribed, if you could drop a sub on the channel, that would be amazing. We've got lots coming up over the summer. Specials and all kinds of things. Have a good rest of the evening all. If you're in the UK, try not to melt because it is boiling hot on this one. This evening, have a good rest of the week, and we shall see you guys in the next one.